October 6, 1995. Eindhoven, Netherlands. It was a chilly morning when 15-year-old Nicole van den Hurk mounted her bicycle, heading to her part-time job at a local bakery. She was a teenager with her whole life ahead of her, described as lively, rebellious, but deeply loved by her family. That morning, Nicole never arrived at work. Her bicycle was later found dumped in a canal. Weeks afterward, her body was discovered in the woods outside the city. She had been raped and murdered. Despite desperate efforts, the investigation went cold. For more than 2 decades, the case haunted the Netherlands. It would take an extraordinary act, a stepbrother's shocking false confession, to unearth the truth. This is the haunting story of Nicole van den Hurk. Nicole was born in Germany in 1980, but moved to the Netherlands with her family when she was young. By 1995, she lived in Eindhoven with her stepfather and worked part-time in a bakery. She was described as vibrant, with a strong personality, sometimes clashing with family, but always fiercely independent. Like many teenagers, Nicole wanted freedom, but she was still a child, only 15. On October 6th, she left home early in the morning, riding her bicycle through the quiet streets of Eindhoven. When she failed to show up for work, alarms spread quickly. She was responsible and rarely skipped commitments. Her bicycle was soon found in a canal. The discovery pointed immediately toward foul play. Police launched an investigation, interviewing family, friends, and possible witnesses. Flyers were distributed. The media covered the case widely. But for weeks, there was no trace of Nicole herself. On November 22, 1995, the search came to an end when her remains were discovered in the woods between Eindhoven and Mierlo. The discovery confirmed the worst fears. Nicole had been raped and killed. The tragedy shocked Eindhoven. A child had been taken violently in their community, and no one knew who was responsible. The mid-1990s was a different era for police investigations. DNA profiling was still in its infancy. Dutch investigators collected evidence from Nicole's body, but the technology to fully analyze it was limited. Detectives began looking at the most obvious circle of suspects: family members and people close to Nicole. Some suspicion initially fell on her stepfather. As is often the case in murder investigations, those closest to the victim are questioned first, but there was no evidence linking him to the crime. Other men in Eindhoven were investigated, including individuals with a history of violence, but leads fizzled out. Witnesses provided little useful information. There was also immense public pressure. Nicole's murder became a high-profile case in the Netherlands, especially because of her young age. The community demanded answers. The police were criticized for failing to deliver results. But with no conclusive evidence, the investigation stalled. Nicole's body was buried. The file was archived, and the case went cold.
For over 15 years, Nicole's murder remained unsolved. Her family endured not only the pain of losing her, but the torment of unanswered questions. Technology advanced during those years. DNA analysis became more precise and powerful. Cold cases around the world were being reopened and solved thanks to forensic breakthroughs. But Nicole's case remained untouched. Her stepbrother, Andy van den Hurk, couldn't let it go. Andy was only a teenager himself when Nicole was killed. He grew up in the same household and carried the weight of her loss for years. As he got older, he became increasingly frustrated with the inaction of the authorities. Andy believed strongly that modern forensic science could identify Nicole's killer. He campaigned for her body to be exhumed, urging investigators to apply DNA testing to preserve evidence. But officials refused. They insisted there was no justification. Years passed. Nothing changed. In 2011, Andy made a decision that would change the course of the case and nearly ruin his own life. He walked into a police station and confessed to killing Nicole. The confession stunned everyone. Why would Nicole's own stepbrother admit to such a horrific crime? The truth was extraordinary. Andy was lying. He hadn't killed his sister. His confession was a desperate act of sacrifice, a calculated gamble to force the police to exhume her body. Andy explained later that he believed this was the only way to make investigators reopen the case. He was prepared to risk his freedom, even his future, to bring justice to Nicole. The risk was enormous. False confessions can often result in wrongful convictions. Andy could have spent his life in prison, but his strategy worked. Authorities reopened the case. In September 2011, Nicole's body was exhumed. Forensic experts were finally given a chance to analyze her remains with modern DNA testing.
The results changed everything. DNA was recovered from Nicole's remains. It didn't match Andy. It didn't match her stepfather. Instead, it belonged to an unknown male. Investigators compared the DNA against national databases. A match was found. Jos de Goey, a man with a history of violent crimes who had lived in Eindhoven at the time of Nicole's murder. After more than 15 years of silence, police had their suspect. In January 2014, Jos de Goey was arrested. Jos de Goey was not an ordinary man. He had a troubling criminal record, including violent offenses. He was known to police but had managed to avoid scrutiny in Nicole's case. He lived in Eindhoven in 1995, the same city where Nicole disappeared. Yet somehow, during the original investigation, his name never surfaced as a serious suspect. For years, he blended back into society. He lived freely while Nicole's case gathered dust. It took Andy's desperate act and the progress of DNA science to finally unmask him. In 2016, Jos de Goey stood trial for the rape and killing of Nicole van den Hurk. The prosecution presented the DNA evidence linking him directly to Nicole's remains. They argued that the presence of his DNA could only mean one thing. He was responsible for her assault and death. The defense responded with a disturbing claim. Jos admitted to sexual contact with Nicole, but insisted it had been consensual. He denied killing her. This argument was widely rejected. Nicole had been 15 years old, a child, legally incapable of giving consent. And the brutality of the crime scene evidence told another story. Witnesses testified about Jos's history of aggression and predatory behavior. Combined with the DNA evidence, the case against him was overwhelming. In November 2016, the court convicted Jos de Goey of rape and manslaughter. He was sentenced to 12 years in prison and committed to psychiatric care. For Nicole's family, it was both justice and disappointment. The conviction ended decades of silence, but the sentence felt far too light. A young girl had been raped and killed, yet her murderer would serve only a little over a decade behind bars. The case captivated the Netherlands. The twists, from a cold case, to a false confession, to DNA evidence, to the eventual conviction, made it one of the most haunting and controversial criminal sagas in Dutch history. Public reaction to Andy's confession was mixed. Some viewed him as reckless. Others saw him as a hero, a man willing to risk everything to force justice for his sister. What cannot be denied is that without Andy's sacrifice, Nicole's case would likely still be unsolved. The murder of Nicole van den Hurk had lasting impact in the Netherlands and beyond. It highlighted the limitations of 1990s-era investigations and underscored the power of DNA science in solving cold cases. The case also sparked debate about sentencing. Many believed Jos de Goey's punishment did not reflect the severity of his crimes. Most of all, Nicole's story became a chilling reminder of the lengths to which families will go in the pursuit of justice. Andy's false confession remains one of the most extraordinary acts ever connected to a murder investigation. His gamble forced the system to act, and it worked. Nicole's name continues to echo in discussions about cold cases and the importance of never giving up. Nicole van den Hurk was just 15 years old when her life was stolen on a quiet October morning. For 20 years, her killer walked free. But thanks to the courage of her stepbrother and the power of forensic science, the truth finally emerged. Nicole's story is haunting. It is tragic, but it is also a testament to perseverance, sacrifice, and the pursuit of justice. Justice delayed is not justice denied. And though it came at a heavy cost, Nicole's voice was finally heard. If you found Nicole's story as chilling and haunting as we did, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more true crime stories that reveal the dark truths behind cold cases.